Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Winter, and I am the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent, non-commercial podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. I have been looking very much forward to release especially this week's episode. Universities and their project support departments are heavy users of the EU R&D funding programs. Therefore, it has been an ambition since I started this podcast initiative last summer to get representatives from a university project support office into the studio to share with you all how they work and support their research teams. As regulars will know, I already had Massimo Busuoli from the NTNU Brussels Office in the studio last year. That spinned off a contact to their project support unit back home in Norway, and today's release is a panel episode with 3 leading employees from that office: Hilde Røysland, Reunick and Håvard Wibe, all 3 with the title of Senior Advisor. In this episode, you will get an in-depth insight into how one of the strongest technical universities in collecting EU funding in Europe, they organize themselves to support their researchers. First of all, they give an overview of the funding strategy, including policy and lobby elements. Second, we dig into how they have practically organized themselves and the practical approach to the funding support. And finally, they share their key research areas and give practical project examples as a result of their work. You can't get this kind of information anywhere else than on The Grant. Really, it's pure gold for research managers across the continent. Please enjoy. The Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today, I'm very happy because sometimes being a podcast host and doing what I'm doing here, there's sometimes a long time from you reach out until you secure guests and until you secure a date. It can be a little tricky because it's busy people that I'm approaching. And in this case, it's been a while. I approached the organization back in autumn, and I had a recording with their Brussels office. But I also wanted to have the main organization on board the podcast. But it's like this. The most important thing is that you settle a date and you get people on board, and this is what we have now. Now I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm just going to say hi to my dear guests. Welcome on board, all 3 of you. And to not keep my listeners, you dear listeners, in oblivion, today I have NTNU on board, Norwegian Research Organization, and now, as I always do, everybody here. So I have 3 guests on board from NTNU, from EU support section, and each of you now will get a chance to shortly introduce yourself. And I will start with you, Hilde. Always ladies first. Please, shortly about yourself.
Thank you, Niels. It's nice to be here. It's glad I agree. It took quite a time to get here, but I'm glad we finally made it before we go to our summer holidays. I work together with my colleagues here, Patrick and Håvard. I work in the NTNU Central Office with EU support in supporting the organization in successing in more EU grants. And of course, we are a threefold animal, not only the 3 of us present here today, but we have to, and we will get to it further down this meeting. The key parts of the support system, which is the faculty's EU advisors and the Brussels office, as well as ourselves in the central level. But we will get into all this later on.
Thanks. Patrick.
Yes, thank you very much, Niels, for inviting us today. And together with Hilde and Håvard, we are in the central section for research, innovation, and external relations at NTNU, which is the main kind of research support department at the central level at NTNU. And my tasks mainly are around international collaboration with several areas within EU and Horizon Europe funding as such.
Okay, thank you. And Håvard?
Hello, Nils. As Hilde and Patrick have already covered, we all work in the Department of Research, Innovation and External Relations, where we have a plethora of tasks connected to internationalization, European funding, and also other external relation. I work quite a bit with municipalities and public sector, and also some different companies.
Thank you so much. We already have sort of an idea that it's a quite broad area working with here when it comes to funding. Before we dig into the topic, the core topic of today, the funding approach from the university. Short presentation of the university. Who want to pick that up, Hilde?
Yeah, we could. It's a broad-fledged university covering almost all fields, and I know Patrick has prepared a piece on this.
Yeah.
So NTNU is the largest university in Norway. We have approximately 44,000 students and more than 8,000 employees. So we like to say that we are covering 1% of the national population in Norway. Approximately 40% of our employees are international, and approximately 10% of our students are international. If we look at the total budget, which is roughly 1 billion euros a year, 50% of this is going towards research and innovation. And a certain percentage of this is also in EU-funded projects, where we in Horizon 2020 had more than 260 projects, and now in Horizon Europe we are participating in more than 100 projects already. And as we are a comprehensive university, we also have a comprehensive approach to Horizon Europe, where we take part in all parts of the program, from excellent science to global challenges and innovative Europe as such. And we also participate in other EU projects, as the Erasmus program, the Digital Europe program, Creative Europe program, the EU for Health program, and more. And I think that is maybe a short introduction to NTNU as such.
Yeah, thanks. So let's just get on board the topic of today. So I'm very happy to have you in, because it's one of the key targets of this podcast is to open up the EU funding world and how the stakeholders also, so not only proposal support or how to do that or implementation of projects, but also open up the world of the stakeholders that are approaching the funding schemes. And the university world, it's such an important part of this, of course, because it's funding that much of it is directed towards. So it's the first time I have a university support unit in here, and so I've been looking very much forward to this, to dig into this and share with the listeners how things work. Now, I already had your man in Brussels, Massimo, in for an episode some 6-7 months ago. So we have got regulars of this podcast already have got a glimpse into how NTNU works, and that's also the motivation for approaching you in the first place, to get the home home office, so to say, of the university into the studio to dig a little bit into how you work as a university, how you strategically work with it, and how you practically work with it. Now, if we start with the overall EU funding strategy of NTNU, it's a big animal you have there. Huh? You see the biggest university in Norway. It's a huge body there. Yeah? It's a huge organization. It's with a lot of faculties, institutes, research teams, and so on. And most of them would have an interest in, or would have worked with areas where it's relevant for approaching EU funding, for external funding. Now, this should tell me that there should be sort of a political level from the university where there's a strategy, or there's an approach from the top level on how you're approaching this. Can you share with me if that is so, and how the political level of the university, the management, is their approach to the EU funding part?
Sure. EU funding is getting increasingly more important in, I think, all of Europe, especially in Norway. Right now, we have we're entering a new era of politics nationally, where there's less funding available than there used to be, and this impacts the Norwegian Research Council and our base funding models, and the whole landscape in the higher education sector is getting increasingly challenging. So there is a strong focus both from the political level nationally and also our management, our rectorates, is quite focused on trying to close that funding gap with being more successful in Horizon and other international funding. We have a international development plan that is constructed around where we put our focus and what we work on internationally, where Horizon Europe is core for our organization. We, as Patrick said, we had about 260 odd projects in Horizon 2020, and about 100 million euros of funding, and we aim to increase that for Horizon Europe. Politically, at NTNU, we are a political organization. We have internal politics, but it is also a very traditional university where we can't really dictate the faculties and tell them what to do. we can give them directions and they can follow it, and they normally do. But we are in academia, and it is quite open and free organization in that respect. So it's more about facilitating and spreading information and trying to get the best out of our researchers in a way that they are motivated to go out there and get the projects, because this is also where some of our best science happens. The international collaborations with other European universities and RTOs and public sector and companies is absolutely crucial to stay relevant in the modern research world.
Indeed. Now, maybe we zoom a little bit out and just shortly give the listeners a back curtain of the Norwegian system, because the Norwegian Research Council, it's a very, very important organization for the research organizations in Norway, right? They are the backbone of where you receive your funding en bloc. Isn't that correct?
There's two streams of funding. One is, of course, the Ministry of Research and Higher Education, where we get our base funding. And then there are quite substantial amounts of money given by the ministry to the Research Council, and they distribute that money via open calls or sometimes other more closed schemes, but mainly through open calls. So compared to Denmark, we function quite differently. The Research Council, as you said, is the backbone of, or has been the backbone, and still is, but it's their funding is getting cut, and they are getting. They are still extremely important, but they are not as influential in funding wise as they used to be. And you also, of course, must not forget Innovation Norway, which has the same kind of role in Norway, but to simplify it, later in the TRL stage, maybe you could say when you get closer to commercialization, then this funding schemes are the responsibility of Innovation Norway. But we, as a university, also have some funding from Innovation Norway. It's not only companies, but the biggest piece of the cake is definitely in the Research Council, and they, of course, are comprehensive. So they have calls in all academic fields, and also instruments where we collaborate with industry. We have had for about 25 years, we've had a center funding scheme where the Research Council funds centers that run for 8 years, and they are focused on environmentally friendly energy solutions, excellent basic research, and centers for collaboration with industry, research-based collaboration with industry. Am I forgetting any, Hilde?
I think you are covered pretty well.
Yeah, there's 3 of them.
I think where I want to go with this, so to keep my nose in the track, the reason why I'm asking into this, because I know that the Research Council is a very important organization also when it comes support for pushing towards EU funding. So you have the framework conditions like this that you can apply, right? You can apply for funding, so the proposal development funding, so to say. And I know because I've been working for P&O, so I know that there was a framework agreement between the Research Council and P&O where that would facilitate that you could get reviews from a professional grants advisors and so on, to sort of sharpen things toward the EU funding to get the higher likability to get funding. Are those framework conditions changed?
I think Patrick has worked more with that part of our business.
Yes, so what we can say, I'd also like to add here that the Research Council of Norway, as Håvard said, is by far the most important external funding source of our research, and they are NTNU as a university is the largest customer of the Research Council of Norway, with more than 100 million euros a year in funding in different instruments that they have, and they are a very important institution and instrument in the Norwegian system. And as Håvard also said, the budgets are getting tighter than they have been, and that is also being affected on the EU mobilization part, where we see that for example, they also have a lot of national contact points for the different parts of Horizon Europe, which are excellent experts that we and our researchers use in mobilizing towards the proposals in the work programs as such, and they are also offering proposal establishment and grants still a bit reduced compared to before, but still this is an important instrument that the Norwegian institutions can apply for on a competitive basis. And they also have framework agreements with external consultants, as you mentioned, at the moment. But we also, as institutions, have these agreements to also complement the services and activities that we already do as universities.
Okay, thanks. This just to frame in a little bit your framework conditions in relation to this. So for NTNU, I guess from the approach, you sort of have to calibrate a little bit with the fact that the funding here is getting slimmer or thinner from the national level. So that's it. And you can probably confirm that there's a raised awareness of moving towards external from the EU.
Definitely.
All right, let's move a little bit into how you're organized in the NTNU in relation to EU funding. So I just revisited the episode I recorded with Massimo. I had a listen to it yesterday. So you have support per faculty, right? So you don't have a central funding department. How does that work? Maybe you explain yourself.
Yes, that is correct. We don't have a central or the central level of the support system is kind of us working a lot of other things also than EU funding. So each faculty has one or two dedicated EU advisors. All faculties have that kind of resource and competence, and also at the Science Museum. And of course, they all have a wide portfolio of tasks that they're working on besides the EU research. So when you ask us about the resources set aside for it, we cannot count the people and say that this is the amount of resources that we put into the EU support, because they do a vast lot of other things. And you have already mentioned the Brussels office. They work pre-grant, so to say, in the collaborative schemes and in the European partnerships of Horizon Europe. So this means that the positioning of NTNU in the political and stakeholder context of European collaborative research, increasing NTNU visibility as a trusted partner for collaborative research, that is kind of mainly the mandate, so to say, of the Brussels office. And what we do internally, the Brussels office and in Europe and EU advisors internally and supporting the professors and mobilizing new professors to apply for new schemes, it boils down to the professors being the key entry points and the key asset, so to say, of our research engagement in Europe. They are the entry point, either they are represented in a partnership or in a network, or if they place themselves in a very topic-specific context. And in these brochures that we also have through the Brussels office, showcasing professors' interest in this and that specific topic, and all these professors showcasing themselves either through partnerships and networks or through this brochure, they are the main entry point and the critical success factor of our participation in the programs.
I want to say that the way that you have built the system up, I like it. And I was reminded when I listened to the talk I had with Massimo, I like the approach of making the PI, the professors, the persons that are connecting to. So you have a system, or you have an organization with strategic fora at NTNU, and you have these persons that are there, that they are also sitting in the Brussels related fora where they need to be. So there's a direct connection between the research core activities that you have with locally and how it's moving in Brussels. So I really think that you have made it clear, because it's difficult. It's clever, this one. It's very difficult to how to approach this thing, but I think you made it clever. So congratulations with that. I like that. So if we try to have here, now I want to talk a little bit about it, but it's in the same realm here. The key targets of your EU R&D funding involvement. I know it's a little bit of a broad peninsula to paint with, but do you have you got some targets central, like, have you got some targets each, like decentralized in that unit? Do you have set targets of how much money you need to attract, or how many proposals or projects you're supposed to be in, or how does that work?
It's very easy to talk about quantitative measures like money and number of proposals and number of projects as such. I think that this is not what we use anymore as key targets as such, at least at the institutional level. And this has been a long journey to come where we are now. We have participated in many of the framework programs, and it's been a journey where EU has had a very special focus, while we now are moving towards more into a focus that EU is a business as usual arena. We need to compete on this competitive arena on the same way that we compete in the Research Council of Norway or for other projects and possibilities as such. And our main motivation to contribute in these types of projects is also to support our strategies and our vision of knowledge for a better world. And as Håvard also touched upon, that the main reasons to why we are playing this game in a way is on the quality side. We want to be as good as possible, and we want to collaborate with the best on topics that are relevant for us and Norway, and we also want to be in relevant consortia. So that is the main motivation in a way. And we have, as Håvard also touched upon, our international development plan, the 4th generation of this, that sets a bit of a strategic direction for our faculties, our departments, and also our strategic research areas that we're currently revising. And the last generation of that, we had a quantitative measure of reaching 1 billion Norwegian kroners in Horizon 2020, and we reached at least 1.5 billion kroners in Horizon 2020. And our key targets now, in a way, are that we contribute across all the pillars in Horizon Europe, and that we participate where this is relevant, and we have a clear expectation that our researchers compete where this is relevant for them and where they are strong. And this is a very important approach through our leadership, that they set the expectations for their researchers, and they also set the expectations and are the motivators to mobilize towards increasing the EU participation as such. So it's not about the money per se, but it's getting into the right networks, doing cool research that has very positive impact on the world as such. And that we have in our strategy, Knowledge for a Better World. We have it in an international development plan, and we also have a separate ERC development plan that sets focus on that, because we are a comprehensive university with a technical and science focus that typically have had a lot of collaboration with the industry, and we are strong in the collaborative instruments, but we are also working to become even more competitive on the excellent science parts. And we see that through this 2nd generation of ERC development plan, that we are contributing towards having a higher level of applications. We also have higher quality of the applications, and we also have more awarded projects than earlier. And this is part of a very long-term strategy, and a lot of also internal instruments where we are prioritizing and supporting selected researchers that are specifically talented within the areas of research. And this is a very both bottom-up and top-down process that meets in a way. So we have internal structures and programs, for example, tenure track program that's called the Unsager Fellowship Program, where there is a clear expectation that they participate in EU and ERC funding, and also a clear expectation in another program that we call the Outstanding Academic Fellows Program, or in Norwegian the STAR program, where they are expected to apply for competitive grants in the EU afterwards. So,
thank you, Patrick, for this. Now, the last sub bullet that I have here in relation to your strategy is the lobby part, and that's but it's quite connected to what Hilde you mentioned earlier. So the influencing there. As I can understand from also my episode with Massimo, the Brussels office is key, but the things that you have made this structure of a local fora in NTNU at campus within core strategic areas of yours where the professors are connected, that sort of makes the key stream or lobby influence logistics, so to say. But can you say anything about that?
You described three core elements of the lobbying, which is the Brussels office, the professor competence, and the structure. Yep. And I think if you remove one of them, it would kind of not be as impactful as we believe it is as of now. And all these three elements working together in this structured approach is successful. And one small example also of the showcasing and placing NTNU at the attention of the Brussels system, so to say, and the stakeholders and the policymakers in Brussels is the yearly NTNU European Conference, which has the frame of NTNU at the political stage, but the content is delivered by NTNU professors. And all the professors are on top of their international research environments, so that when we go there as a university, it is our brilliant professors who are kind of showcasing our research and how we are connected, plugging into and delivering policy relevant research at the international stage, so to say.
Yeah, it's clever. Again, I like the structure you made in the different elements because it all comes together very fine. That sort of covers, I think, very well the sort of strategic approach. So now let's move into the practical approach. So how you work with these things, how you sort of roll out this in on a day-to-day basis. Excuse me. How many people are you working with pre-award and project support overall in NTNU? Do you know?
If you count the people who has some stake in it, there are so many ways to count. We can count the EU advisors who have different tasks. We can count those who are supporting EU projects one way or the other, and more we see that EU research is becoming what we do as a way of working. It's not kind of EU research and you can point at that person and that person is working with EU research. It's what we all do. I think almost close to everybody, both administratively, technically, PhDs and professors in NTNU relate to EU research one way or the other. And of course, it varies how active they are and how driving they are in being principal investigators. But EU research is kind of, this is what we do for breakfast and then for lunch and then during the day. So it depends on what you're asking. So how many resources do we put into EU research? Depend on what you're looking for. But administratively support, I don't know if it makes sense even to count resources or full-time equivalents, because it's a way of thinking. It is getting more and more into our DNA, so to say.
The question is, of course, deliberate to open up to fold it out a little bit, because it's exactly the answer that I like to get, and it is actually how it is supposed to be, right? So it be horizontal, and it being a part of everybody's work, so to say, or at least the ones where it makes sense, that it is a corner, a natural part of their tasks as professionals. That part of it, there are EU corners, EU funding related corners, which makes it much easier to massage it into the system. That this is not the problem with EU funding, and it's also so for the research world and universities. It can be difficult to approach, and it's especially for the young researchers, or the researchers that do not approach international funding that often. You know that much better than me, but I've been helping researchers over the years, so I kind of know the mechanisms that researchers are the most fantastic people in this world, right? They are so dedicated. It's really it's life and death for them often. The research they do, and some segments of researchers they when they know that they need money or funding or resources to move on, they try to look elsewhere, and then they see, there's also EU money there. Oh, but what's this? Now I have to do this. And so even though that they are very dedicated people, they're very clever, very intelligent people, they kind of resist even a little bit that they have to do this. And this is where you come into the picture, right? The support team, all the people that try to facilitate this, it's actually not that difficult. How do you work with this? Because you know the mechanisms much better than me. You work with this every single day. How have you got? Because it's a lot of it's people skills, right? To work with the individuals. It's not just a matter of seeing, here we have a research team, and now there's funding that fits, and it's a psychology.
And that is where the local support systems really get into it, because they know people in person. They know their individual career goals. They know their project paths. They know the ambitions. They know the keys and who to contact who. And of course, even if we think of it as having gone into our DNA, of course it varies a lot. Many people are still there that EU is a big animal. And then our competent corps of EU advisors are the ones breaking this animal into edible pieces, so to say, so that they are cutting the elephant into pieces and advising them on which conference to go to. And when I am in this conference, how do I place myself as an interesting partner to an EU program? And so they go there with an current and up-to-date knowledge of what is going on the EU, in the work program, in the topics, and how can they showcase themselves and introduce themselves as a prospective partner to a proposal. So it's about discussing with them which event to be, which network to be in, and knowing that this is not a short-term effort, that going to a conference will lead to a proposal and then you're in a project next year. This will take years to work on, but the mentality of engaging in these international networks and not having too big ambitions at the outset, but having the ambition of getting to know what is going on in the EU arena and maybe getting invited as a partner. That is, Patrick, please fill me in here.
And also one thing that we've been doing is to use these experienced researchers as motivators and inspiration for the younger ones. So at the institutional level, we also have an instrument we call for the science conversations, where we share experiences from researchers on various topics, also on how do we work with networks, how do we work with externally funded projects, and such. And we had one of our very successful researchers has a very nice story where he told about he, as a young researcher, he loved working with stochastic optimization. But if he were to collaborate with European people on stochastic optimization, there was no funding for this in the framework programs at that time. So if he was to collaborate across Europe on exciting things, he had to find a way to do this more applied and to work in collaborative projects that are interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. So using these experienced researchers is also a way of
well, it's because sort of using because the motivation of the research is, this is so important. I need to do this research. I need to fold it out. There's so many elements I need to dig into with this. But you cannot get exactly that from EU, but you can get it if you do this. If you collaborate with these guys, and then you sort of put them in that's the motivation, right? And then you need a calibrator, ones that had tried it before. And this is vital in your end. And I think you have spent a lot of resources internally in NTNU in how to work with these things, because building up capacity on approaching public funding, especially EU, it's vital because you always have young researchers, or you always have researchers that have not worked with these things. But you have the entry level persons, and then you have the mid level that have maybe been involved a couple of times, written a work package description, and then you have the ones that are very advanced there that can write a proposal or be coordinating something. But you need to lift. You need a logistics, so to say, to lift up the ones at the lower level and give them more and more in bits and pieces. And I think this is very important. So it's I like that you're doing it like this, to try to in a safe environment, right? To lift them up, because it's scary. Not also for like SMEs, and for sometimes if you don't know this world, it's scary to approach.
What we do to reduce if they found it scary, there are groups from time to time going to a study visit to Brussels to kind of take down the threshold of what does it mean to enter into European collaboration. So groups from different faculties, either leadership groups or head of research groups, or professors going to Brussels to kind of get a sense of what it is like. And it boils down to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, EU research also is all about people, who you know and how to get to know them and where to contact them. And when you know when to contact, if you just take that initial contact, do that phone call, send that email, approach this person at a conference, initiate a discussion. It all boils down to people and who you know. And what we can do as in the support system is that we know who to know. And through the Brussels office and our contacts, we know who it is a good idea to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, they will do the most of the work themselves. But it is people, and it's not like big offices and closed walls.
No,
it's people.
Because that's exactly. So if we try to, we break it up. So you have two legs. So say you have the, look at from your point of view. So you have the one direction is towards the team and the individual PI that you work with, and you have a structure around this, how to give them capacities and lift their competences within this. And then you have the link the other way down to Brussels and the network and the office you have there, Massimo, and there that gives the logistics for you to lift them into these networks. So the network part, and I know Massimo is very good I've known him for many years, and he's very strong in exactly this, both human skills, but also the networking and the tough part of it. And having such an office, having such a person in Brussels, it's vital for the second leg. Yeah, because you can always say to a researcher, we have to find out where the fora, where you can be, that's important, and so on. But you need to map these things. You need to have someone there that has the fingerspitzgefühl of where to talk to, who to talk to, how to connect those people and calibrate with the individual person from your team, from the research team, that person, to try to sort of also with the human skill part, okay, you need to talk to this guy, I need to talk to this lady over here, because that's gonna be good for you and to open up things for you. Isn't it so?
Yeah.
Because that's how you build it up.
Yeah,
I like it.
For us, we can see a definite change in our understanding and involvement in Europe after we opened the Brussels office. One thing is the Massimo himself as a person who's really good, but to have someone knowing which fora are important for the different calls and drafts and where you need to be connected to get into the right consortia. I mean, it's such a wide field, and it's I would say impossible to do that well from anywhere other than Brussels.
Yeah, you cannot. And what kind of was is sort of square root sort of message from the talk I had with Massimo was that, because it's not just lobbying, right? It's not just about getting into the right networks and opening up your research. What it does of positive, the main side effect is that you're invited into the right proposals. You're being invited into the stronger you are in putting your foot in the right places in Brussels for an organization like yours, the more you are and involving your professors, so to say, and your key persons in the right place, the more you're invited into the right proposals, and the more funding you will get to the strategic, important research for your research teams. That's how it works, and you cannot do that on the distance. It's not possible. You can have your research network globally or in Europe that you have. Probably many of your research faculties and institutes and teams are involved in all kinds of networks within their specific research. But to open up the funding, it's vital to be in Brussels. So yeah, that's nice. I like this conversation. Open things up a little bit. Now, what I want to talk to you about when I finally have a research organization in my studio here, because it's the time resource paradox. We need to have a talk about that, because now we talked a little bit about networking Brussels and how you're organized and how you support people. But I want to focus a little bit on the time resource paradox, as I call it. So, and you know exactly what I mean when I fold it out. Researchers are very busy people, especially public researchers, because they're not only doing their research, they also have to do teaching. They have to sit with PhDs, guide them. They have to prepare for the teachings. So they have a palette of tasks that they are obliged to do in a university. But on top of this, if they want external funding, they have to approach national funding or EU funding, and this often have to do outside the other tasks they have to do, and that often happens to be outside working hours. So many researchers, if they want to approach funding, they actually have to sit and do it off hours. That's at least my experience with the universities I've been collaborating with throughout the years. Is that something that you are addressing at the NTNU, at the support team? Is there somewhere where you deal with this paradox that they need the funding to move on, but they actually don't have the time to sit and and develop the text for a coordinator, or do you have a comment on that?
I mean, this is not EU specific. This is a fundamental problem in academia, and it kind of gets. I'm struggling to find a better way of saying it, but it gets even worse because the best people, the very best people, are very often best in all of that. So they're the best. They're often the best educators. They're often the best innovators. They're often the best at writing proposals, or at least the most attractive partners in proposals. So this is the nature of academia, and it is difficult to find time. Fortunately, in Norway, we are still run quite as a traditional university, where all of the permanently employed academic staff has 50% research time that they manage themselves. Of course, there's heaps of things that they need to do in that space of time, and we still very much experience this issue. But we do have some support and also funding schemes that alleviate this. The Research Council, as Patrick was touching upon, still has project development support, which is a call that universities can apply for a lump sum, and then we receive a lump sum of money that we distribute to by application to researchers that want to develop EU funding applications. And that money can be used, for instance, to buy themselves out of teaching duties. So that helps somewhat. Our EU advisors, of course, take down the workload of developing the proposals, both on the administrative side and also sometimes writing parts of the applications. But our EU advisors are very different. They work in different ways. They have different experiences, so it varies a lot how involved they are in the actual development. But we've had in 2012, I think, we started a program that we called Gold Card Groups, where we identified groups of researchers that had especially high potential in Horizon 2020. Well, actually FP7. And these groups were then awarded one project development position for 4 years. And that program ran for two iterations. And they tried different approaches to who they hired for these positions. And we saw that some of them were very effective at bringing down the workload of preparing process, and we had at least not instantly, but we saw after 8 years that some of those groups were instrumental to meeting our targets for Horizon 2020 at least. And after that funding ran out, we see that these groups are still dominating internally. So some of the groups have a very high percentage of their faculty's EU funding. One of the smaller faculties, Faculty of Architecture and Design, I think, that group probably constitutes 80% of the funding that they get from the EU. Patrick?
That's great.
And also to zoom a bit out on this, as you mentioned, Håvard, on the group level, it's often the individual researcher that has a lot of focus and has a lot of expectations on themselves. But we have a clear strategic focus at the couple of last years to build resilient and strong research groups, and not necessarily only individual researchers as such. And that is also to alleviate the pressure and the time resource paradox in a way, because it's expectations on teaching, it's expectations on research, on innovation, on dissemination, on collaboration with all different stakeholders in a way. And if this is put down on the one individual researcher, this is too much in a way. So how can we build the resilient research groups that also have a good support structure with such as project developers, as Håvard mentioned in a way. So going away from more the individual to the collective as such.
Yeah, but it's I like that you have approached it in a way and tried to deal with it, because it's something that all universities experience, and it's I guess it's like this with everything else. When you start to work with things and understand how things work, then it also gets easier. So I guess the departments that have the ones you just mentioned, the architectures, they will continue unless they change position, unless you have change in personnel. But if they stay with you, they know how these things work now. They're involved in the right networks. They will be invited into processes. It's easier for them to have the flow because it's not so complicated anymore. So it's all a matter of it's an investment, right? That you've been doing with that approach. It's an investment in saying, look, I'm going to spend some money where we relieve them a little bit, and then you are now seeing the return on that. So,
and also through the capacity that these groups got, they also got involved in the right fora, and they placed themselves in the right places on the European stage, which over time also actually takes down the workload, because they don't need to look as much for the right opportunities. They come to them, and through their networks, they are now part of the best applications every time, because they've influenced those networks over years. They've been in the right steering groups and the right organizations that give the right feedback to the right work programs and the right policy. And so we see that very clearly in several fields, but maybe most clearly in around smart cities and also energy efficient buildings, neighborhoods, that part where we have been lucky enough to have a group that has been extremely proactive, both on the input side to the Commission and framing policy and work programs. And now that we see, for instance, the new European Bauhaus becoming a big thing, is something that I wouldn't say it's not because of them, of course, but they have definitely been part of shaping that and making it happen, which fits NTNU really well with our strengths in both the creative arts and architecture and design and engineering on the energy and resource side.
Great. Another topic, a little bit different from this, but still highly relevant in relation to the work you do. Yesterday, I recorded an episode with a researcher from Norway. And we talked a little bit about also the researchers and what the issue is, what the toughest part can be in relation to getting towards EU funding. And what we talked about was he said that it is it's often or can be an issue to calibrate the research teams or the PI's research approach to make that calibrated with what is available to EU funding. We touched it shortly some 10 minutes ago about saying, look, there was this, you had an example of someone who was doing some research and then it wasn't fitting with what was there. So he was forced to sort of move into collaborative projects where he could put that in, so to say. But to speak of it in a more like a broader terms, is it something that you also experience at a general level, that you have researchers and then to work with them and make them understand or make them accept that the research they do, it cannot be exactly as they want when they're going into at least a collaborative project. As an EIC, it's a different case, I know. But if you look at the collaborative projects, how is that? How do you see that? Do you experience the same sort of challenge as a support function?
Yeah, I mean, you have to shape your research to the calls, of course. So you can't do exactly what you want to do, but people are, when they get good experiences, they get better at also shaping their own expectations to what they can and can't do in these projects. Patrick, you had a comment.
One thing that we've been, or our departments and faculties have been working on is how do you kind of define what is your research area broader, and work on the ideas that you want to pursue, and then you have to see how do these ideas fit into the funding calls that come, or how can we work in positioning towards future funding calls to kind of turn them towards what your ideas are optimally together with the consortium. Yeah. But it's more about not trying to fit a triangle into a square or into a circle in a way, but how can I use my idea, long-term ambitions into collaborative projects? What kind of partners do I need to collaborate with? What kind of partnerships do I need to be part of to do this? So and for some researchers this is hard, of course, and they think a lot about this bottom-up funding calls, but I think when you are a younger researcher, it's probably also important to focus on that. You have both the excellent science opportunities, which are more bottom up, but also these collaborative opportunities that are more top down defined, or you have had the possibility to co-create these together with a lot of other people to make opportunities. So it's looking into what kind of window of opportunity do these funding streams give, and then see how can my idea fit into this, and not try to pressure the idea into something, a funding scheme that does not fit, because that's also like kicking a dead horse, as we say in Norwegian.
Yeah, or dragging a dead horse, right? Yeah. But I guess it's also, as we also, it's soft skills, right? It's human skills. It's psychology, how you interact as a support person with the person that like the researchers, to sort of see how you can unfold the potential they have into something that they maybe not exactly thought it would be, but maybe give them the ideas. Look, it might open up a lot more for you actually to approach it this way. Or yeah.
And this is a collaboration between the support staff, the leadership, other researchers in a way. So using the whole research ecosystem to pull together and to contribute to each other in a way.
Yeah.
I just want to pick up on this, because this example that you gave, Patrick, initially on this young professor wanting to do optimization, mathematical optimization, and there is no call on mathematical optimization, but you bringing that really in-depth competence into the energy research area. He has not compromised at all on the optimization knowledge and optimization expertise, but it is put into a different setting. So, and that approach is a very good example for others who cannot find their area in the goals, because if they cut it into pieces, and they will, if we can discuss with them that it is not their whole research interest that can be funded, but they have contributions as a partner into one bullet point of a long topic that is so wide, then they can be really loyal to their research interest and still work on the core.
Thanks. I think we're actually moving now. I have the final sub-bullet here on organization, a practical approach about the lobby approach, but we actually discussed that and talked about that, right? How you have the logistics and how you work with that. So I don't think we need to roll that out more. Unless, Patrick, do you have?
One thing we also could mention there is that the Research Council of Norway have these reference groups towards the European Commission, where many of our researchers participate in these reference groups that are either on a cluster level or for excellent research projects or in the EIC in a way. And that is also a way of getting our researchers in contact with the European Commission through the Research Council and National Contact Points system, in addition to what we've talked about earlier through the Brussels office.
So you have Brussels office, you have your own logistics, and then you're also involved in the reference groups in the Research Council that have also their Brussels. So it's sort of a system, so to say, that
and also the partnerships that we talked about a bit earlier, and all the researchers that are part of all these partnerships.
Yeah. How closely are you to the NCPs of Norway?
I would say quite close. It varies from field to field. They are, of course, also individuals and work in different ways, but we have both centrally but also locally. They have direct contact with the NCPs, and they're very helpful. And the Research Council also arranges events where we physically meet the NCPs, and all of the EU advisors at all of the universities and the RTOs and other stakeholders. So yeah, I would say we use them quite actively, and they work really well.
Important part of the system.
I would just want to add, they are an important part of the total ecosystem. So we use them and they use us. It's not like they are helping us. 20 years ago, the Research Council said that we are helping the universities. They are not anymore talking about helping the universities, because it is a collaborative effort. We are in this game together with the same ambition and the same objective. So they do good things that we need, and they need NTNU to be successful, and they need other universities to be successful, because that impacts their image of success as well. So it's really a joint effort and big ecosystem.
Indeed, I used to be one myself, Danish NCP many years ago, and you cannot work as an NCP if you. It's a two-way street. So there's so much knowledge that you have no idea of as an NCP. There's only so much you can pick up. So you're deeply reliant on the environment and the stakeholders that you support to know and understand what it is that's important. So yeah, indeed. Now, unless you have anything else, then we have a couple of elements here in the end, but I don't know how much we should dig into that. But I have put here key research tracks in Horizon Europe. Do you have any specific research areas you want to highlight that has been especially successful when it comes to your work with EU funding? Yes, Patrick?
One thing we could mention as such is how we've done it in Horizon 2020 at a more aggregated level. We have these strategic research areas at NTNU, where we have 4 areas at current that are being revised, but it's in energy, it's in oceans, in sustainability, and in health. So, for example, in the energy program in Horizon 2020, NTNU was among the 5 universities that got most funding. And also in the environment program, we were among the 5 universities that got most funding. And for example, together with SINTEF, which is the research institute that is the closest collaborator of NTNU, we are the largest institution together in a way in getting energy funded research from the European Commission. Larger than any other countries as such. So that is a powerhouse from our perspective, and using these kind of strategic research areas that are very inter and transdisciplinary with stakeholders outside of the university is also a very nice way of consolidating our research, and we want to be a very transdisciplinary institution and to work towards our vision in a way. And we see that also in the energy field that we are doing it very well. So this is something that we will also continue with. And for example, in the energy field, we have more than 600 researchers across our faculties that are working in social sciences, in humanities, and financial, and engineering, and everything in a way. So putting this together has been very important in a way. And we also have had a large participation into the European Energy Research Alliance over many years. And we also have a local shadow committee to work in towards many of these joint programs. And we were also instrumental in establishing the hydropower joint program a couple of years ago. So
this wonderfully paints the picture of your key research areas of importance, and how the EU funding has lifted the influence, the positive impact that EU funding has done to the track. So I guess that now it's for these areas, it's integrated fully, the EU funding and the European approach. It's a core part of what they do.
Absolutely.
Very well. Are there any concrete projects you want to flag? Any funded projects that you say that was particularly successful, or things that really that made or break or moved things in a very good, nice direction for a specific research team or institute?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work at our Faculty for Architecture and Design when we prepared one of the largest EU projects that we had. Well, the largest that we had in Horizon 2020, but now I think we have larger ones in Horizon Europe. A smart city lighthouse project that we developed together with the Trondheim municipality. That has been a very successful project, also in addressing and starting to build a model for better collaboration with the public sector, because the municipality has such a large portion of the funding and the activities. This is a project that we have that is ending now, and we had it. NTNU we are coordinating it, and we have 2 lighthouse cities, one here in Trondheim and one in Limerick in Ireland, and it looks at smart cities broadly. So both the softer approaches with citizen involvement and those aspects, but also the main focus is around mobility and local energy grids or sustainable energy blocks that are demonstrated to be truly energy positive throughout the year. This has made quite large impacts here in Trondheim specifically, but also on a European level. Trondheim became the first place in Europe where we actually traded electricity real time between buildings as a transaction. So through that project, NTNU and the municipality received the dispensation from the from NVE, which is the Norwegian Power Authority. They actually gave us the permission to test out in real time flexible energy trading locally, which hasn't been done before, and will be a huge part of the future of the electricity grids in the world. If we're going to solve the energy crisis, at least we have to do that.
No.
And that's
Yeah.
it's running out now, and
Nice.
it's created also a very good collaboration with the municipality here, where we have a lot of other projects spinning out of it.
Yeah, what this kind of made me think of, how has EU funded facilitated that you have gotten closer to industry collaboration and municipal collaboration? Håvard, you are dealing with municipalities. Have the surrounding society, has your EU funding involvement, in broadly speaking, from the NTNU, has that facilitated a closer connection to collaborating with public entities, but also maybe your commercial collaboration with the industry?
Yes and no. I think in general I would be exaggerating if I said that EU projects has been an important part of bettering our relations with public sectors, because we don't have that many European projects where the public sector is a large partner. Locally here in Trondheim, it has made a real impact through City Exchange and also other projects. But with industry, it's different, and especially our relationship with European industry. We have quite a lot of important funding schemes through the Research Council that builds relationships with mostly Norwegian industry. But when we have the larger industry close European projects, our partners are different. There are, of course, Norwegian partners, but there we truly step into the European landscape. And one really good example of that is our work on infrastructure security, and that group works on how explosions and impacts function and impact physical infrastructure, where we have really close collaborations with the European car industry, for instance, with BMW and Audi and all of the big players. I think, Patrick, you had something you wanted to add there?
Just a quick number experiment from Horizon 2020. We had close to 3,000 partners in the projects that we participated in total, and close to 1,000 of these were industry partners from all around Europe, and approximately 100 of these 1,000 were Norwegian partners. So we have a very large partner base from industry and private sector all across Europe and the globe as such, which the framework programs have contributed to.
Precious. We're slowly moving towards the end here. Thank you so much. What we need to talk about, it's a segment that I have in all my episodes called The Toughest Challenge. It's back from when I was sitting, just myself starting the podcast up and staring into a microphone and just talking myself. I've added this to sort of sum up what is the toughest thing to deal with, whatever topic I'm dealing with in the episode. So if we look at this, it's of course a little broadly speaking, but if you can you kind of give me an idea of what you think is the toughest thing to deal with working with EU funding as a university?
It will be myth-busting.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Patrick?
Just some examples to put front there. Some are based on the EU projects are so bureaucratic that I don't want to participate in this. So we have a support system that will help you with this. And we also have had some myths around that the EU funds so little of our costs, so it's so expensive with the EU projects. But when we look into the true financials, we see that this is not the case. It's quite beneficial as such, both on the financial side and on the research and impact side. So we have worked a lot on myth busting as such.
That's everywhere. When you work supporting people, both companies and research and whatever, you always get this, and you always have an anecdotes. They always pull out an anecdote about they know someone who was involved in someone, and it ended in a Titanic. Everything was a horror. The administration was horror. The partners were horror, and they are never going to do it again. and that's then you need to pull that apart. And yeah, so I agree. That's a constant. That's something that's always pops up when you work with these things. No.
But if you go back to FP6 and FP7, then there is a case to be made that it actually was overly bureaucratic, and the financial rules were not very straightforward for a researcher to understand. So the myths, in my experience, is that they come from somewhere where, and there are were real issues, or they are blown out of proportion, or they didn't have the right support. We've had examples of European projects going terribly wrong.
Oh yeah,
and
of course.
Being very expensive both in time and for the organization. And when you have one of those, it is myth busting. But that project that everyone knows blew up in that way.
That's the one everybody remembers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's always like this. That's why we have bad news in the news all the time. That's what people remember. Yeah, people remember the bad things. It's all the success stories. We don't hear much about them.
But when a research team hasn't filled out a single timesheet for the entirety of the project, and then they are get a European revision, then they can kind of blame themselves.
Exactly. It's not different from anything else in this world. If you also, it's the same for companies when you work with them and support, you say, look, this is taxpayers' money. What do you expect? Of course, there needs to be some accountability of how you spent the money. And it's not different from your accounting system. It's just maybe the principles are different. But you also, if you carry out a project, you also need to have your checks and balances on income outcomes, so to say. What did you spend? What did you get in? It's like this. You keep track on how things were for the success. So of course it's the same here. It's just the systems look different, or the Excel sheets look different, but the basic principle is the same. And that's when you sort of get over that hurdle, then it's a little bit easier.
But we have to add here that it is the possibilities of enhancing the research and to be at the forefront of the international research areas, and not only be at the forefront, but be among those who are pushing the research forefront, even also in the collaborative projects and in the policy relevant and the stakeholder relevant research. So I want really that to be key to the message here.
Yeah, totally agree. Patrick?
And this is long-term work, both on culture and on structure and on organization and on mobilization. And it does not really never end. It may change, but you have to have a focus on it all the way, if not only on EU in a way, but at least how to enable good research, how to enable it reaching impact, and how to reach the goals that you've set for yourself.
Correct. I think we made it. I think that's it. Now, before we say goodbye and goodbye to listeners, I'm just going to land the plane. So, dear listeners, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a pleasure to host it and moderate this talk together with these kind people from NTNU. Lots of extremely valuable information and input for you to reflect on if you sit out there in a university research organization. I hope that helps you. The grant, remember to check out the rest of my universe. I start having a huge back catalog there. More than 60 episodes, tons of content done also for researchers, how to prepare proposals. You can always go to my timeline series and check how you do that step by step. You have lots of input from the process ecosystem, and I'm also slowly having from the research world here. So check it out. If you have sympathy with what I'm doing here, by all means subscribe to the email list. This is the way that podcasts, they build up. I am a startup podcast, so I appreciate every single one that subscribes to that email list. I only send out emails when I release a podcast episode. So on my website, you'll also find my hub, where I try to gather information and links to important places like the participants portal or networking or different webinars from the Commission. Then if you want to follow me, that's a good idea. That's a good recommendation. You should connect with me on LinkedIn. Find me there. If you found this episode, you'll also find me. My name is Niels Tudor-Winther, and you'll find me there. This is where my flow of communication runs. That's also where I share information on whatever's going on in the EU funding world. So please, by all means, do that. I think that was that. Hilde Patrick Håvard. It's been such a nice pleasure to have you around here in the virtual podcast studio. And I hope we will have the pleasure to meet each other in person one day. This initiative will go on anyway, so there might indeed also be an opportunity for you to come back. My door is always open to the grant if there's something that can be discussed, so you can reflect on that. Also, if you have individual research teams that you think could be interesting to flag, I love to have concrete people into the studio to tell about what they actually do of research and how EU funding has helped them. So you can reflect on that. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And let's say goodbye to the listeners. Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.